Why is any one of us here today? Why are we all in this room together? I'm here to talk about creativity, connection, and the courage to show up. All the delicious, strong back, soft front, wild-hearted stuff of Brené Brown's dreams. Only I'm here to talk about it in the context of you and me and our community. Creativity and connection, our relationship with ourselves, being in relation to each other, fulfillment of the desire to belong, are as integral to our health as eating and sleeping and moving. They're different, though, in that they allow us to move beyond the basics, simply surviving, to flourishing. As a relational psychodynamic psychotherapist, a mouthful of a title, I know, I work in the currency of human potential. The stories that we tell ourselves hold powerful sway over our emotions, our beliefs, our behaviors, our identities, and thereby our relationships. Relational psychology is rooted in this idea that relationship with the self and other are an essential aspect of emotional well-being. And it's through the therapeutic relationship which is safe and collaborative and in which we get our hands dirty in the muck of something called relational awareness. All of us are fluent in the language of our own unconscious agreements. These are contracts, they're unspoken, they're couched deep within the unconscious mind, and they can keep us from becoming our most authentic self. See, we maintain the stories that we believe will keep us safe from harm, will ensure our likability, will keep us fitting in, will above all avoid conflict. And yet it's these same stories that keep us in the maya of suffering. And it's these stories that can either limit us or reveal to us our infinite potential. So some of these subconscious agreements might look like, I prioritize the needs of my family above my own, or my partner's career is more important than mine, or, wait for it, I only take risks if I know the possibility of failure is very small. Hands up if any of these sound remotely familiar. One of the more profound and universal narratives inherent to the human condition is this idea and core belief that we are unlovable, and therefore we must do all the things to prove we're worthy. Worthy of love, worthy of happiness, worthy of success, worthy of belonging. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We don't have to hustle for our worth. And the remedy to this deeply dysfunctional, deeply clung to belief is connection. First, there's the connection within. Tuning into our inner world, our relationship with ourself is our most important relationship. Cultivating self-awareness. What are your thoughts? What are your triggers? What are your reactions? And how's that story you've been telling yourself working for you? Then there's the relation with the other, also known as our attachment style. How do you relate to other people? Be curious about how the stories and strategies which may have served you in the past now may be getting in the way of your showing up for yourself and for others. Connection is precious and it's rare, and it's always worth the risk. I'll say that again. Connection is always worth the risk. And if you don't believe me, we can hash it out in your first session. Harder still is having the courage to show up in the connection. I stand in awe of my patients every day. Awe at their courage to show up for themselves in the work, to create meaningful, intentional changes in their lives. I am deeply honored as I accompany folks in their growth process as I, too, navigate my own. As for my own unconscious agreement, it stifled my creativity, and with it, the ability to connect. My perfectionism made me quit my first love, music. No matter the feedback, whatever the reputation of where and with whom I studied, it was never good enough. I only heard where I needed to make improvements. I ruthlessly compared myself to others, and I siphoned the joy out of the very thing that made me feel. So I quit. I stopped singing. I stopped playing, drawing, writing, creating, all of it, for years. I became unknown to myself. I turned to academia, and I put away my playthings. I used to experience this secret shame whenever someone from my past would ask me how singing or other music projects were coming along. Music hadn't just shaped my identity, she'd been my identity, and I had abandoned her. No, I'd shake my head, that was in another life. In my pursuit of perfection over progress, I denied myself this love, the joy in creating and sharing, not for ego, but for play, for connection. If we, the thinkers, the feelers, the planners, the doers, the inspired, the change makers, wish to make a meaningful difference in our community, then it's time we start thinking about how we ourselves can be creatively resourceful in bringing people together. What's the story we want our community to tell? What do we have to give up? What do we risk if we don't? Creativity calls upon us to be impacted by our inner worlds, to really listen, to observe the greater world around us. Creativity calls upon us to be vulnerable, to expand our definition beyond ideas, or to include rather ideas and mediums beyond simply tangible objects and that which is produced. This past year, I grew restless, really frustrated. I was much like a mama bird sitting and waiting on some creative ideas to hatch. And for someone who's good on follow through and getting after her goals, I thought it curious that for the first time in my life, I wasn't bowled over with a burning passion to run with any of them. I wrote out my fears of stagnation. I felt the discomfort of not taking action, what felt like idleness, have since come to define as a season of rest. My learning was in consciously embracing that shift into stillness. As it turns out, I didn't need my passion to show up after all. It's that my passion needed my courage to show up. So I ask you to consider with me, where in your life are you playing it safe? Where do you need to shine a light and bring with you the courage to show up? There's a quote by Mark Groves in which he says, when we say yes to our hearts, we say yes to adventure and uncertainty, and we get in this mode of creating. And when we are in creation mode and pursuing what our hearts call for, there's no longer such a thing as failure. It's simply a redirection towards our truth. Maybe it looks like the artists meet up on Thursday night at the coffee shop, or the community table at the cafe. Maybe it's the online forum for women to share in the beauty and rawness of motherhood, or the board game cafe that hosts Magic the Gathering every Friday night. Maybe it's the local knitting group at the co-working space that meets weekly, or the book club that's started for people who share in their values of personal growth, connection, and accountability. It probably looks a lot like the flower mandala workshop at the yoga studio, and definitely looks like the local TED event intended to ignite conversation and connection within the community. All of these things started out as ideas that people in this very community bravely dared to put forth. So be the one to take that terrifying and exhilarating first step. No matter the thing, hear the call to courage and show up. Embody your values, believe in your dreams, say yes to your heart, say yes to adventure and uncertainty, say yes to creating and connecting. And do the thing that creates and holds space for other people to do the things, like play and create and connect. Thank you.